Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. You with Simon. Today's video, we're going to be looking at Mercury direct, and this is going to be initiated from the 21st of February 2021. I hope that you're well, and of course that this video finds you at a place in your life where this retrograde period has been deeply empowering to you. So just to kind of recap, when Mercury went retrograde, I created a video as well as a secondary video which was called Mercury, or Redefining Mercury Retrograde, right? And so I'm hoping that as we explore this Mercury retrograde period that we've just experienced, and what insights are dropping in for you right now in terms of your own personal astrology chart, that you've been able to access the wisdom of seeing that Mercury, when it goes into retrograde form or into its retrograde passage, we go back into experiences that we've been processing for the last 3 months, and we start looking at the things that are really there for us to reintegrate, reorganize, and readjust, right? This is the kind of wording that comes along with a retrograde planet, and with Mercury retrograde, it's how we organize things, how we get things working for us in a way, structuring stuff, and being able to outline what the next 3 months are going to be for us. So today's video includes a lot of insights about what I think could be really supportive to you and how we can actually move forward with that. Now, Mercury sits in Aquarius at the moment. As you know, it's just about to touch Saturn. So there's this interesting combination between Mercury and Saturn. So there's a lot of messaging that Saturn's bringing to us, right? These two people, or planets, or energies, or frequencies, however you wish to describe it, they're having a conversation with each other. They're very important. So to me, restructuring is an essential part of this patterning. And we also have Mars that is squaring the Mercury. We also have Uranus that is squaring the Mercury as well. And pretty much most of Mercury retrograde has been squaring Mars as well. So even though the energy at this point in time has really been progressive in terms of Uranus, and Uranus wanting to highlight Saturn's transit through Aquarius. Remember that Uranus is ruling Saturn now because it is in Aquarius. Saturn's in Aquarius, Venus in Aquarius, and Jupiter's been in Aquarius as well. Of course, Mercury's been there. So a lot of Aquarius energy. But the point I'm trying to make here is that Saturn is really the planet that we need to be looking at in terms of how we funnel, structure, and reorganize the way that we are reshaping our reality. So reshaping reality being a huge component to this energy at the moment. What are we reshaping at the moment? Well, the way that we organize our perception of reality, the way that we're beginning to see that we are living in a post-COVID world where it was initiated last year in March, and what that means for us, using technology more, relying on it more, a lot more developments taking place around privacy. These types of things are what I would consider to be this Mercury retrograde patterning. This is on a global level. So what does it mean for us individually? Well, we need to look at our actual astrology charts itself. So which houses has the Mercury retrograde been landing in? And I hope to kind of give you some information about that as well. So let's jump straight into the chart, and hopefully we can get some gold nuggets out of this experience. Okay, so as you can see, Sun's now in Pisces. It's moved across Venus during the retrograde period. The Sun also crossed Jupiter as well. So we've had the Sun and Venus cross over while Mercury is retrograde. That's significant. It tells us this has a lot to do with our personal values, and has a lot to do with the way that we emotionally and psychologically attach to those values, what beliefs we form around why those values are important to us. And it also speaks to the cultural values that are shifting. Like, for instance, Zoom, as an example, became deeply popular in the COVID world, right? But now what you're starting to see is a expansion of the value that a program like Zoom can offer. And so what we're having here is an offshoot of other companies that are developing their own programs and enhancing their own technologies that offer very similar, similar functionality that something like Zoom would take place. And of course, Zoom is not the only program. There are tons of other programs. And so the point here that I'm really trying to put across is that there has been an expansion around the necessity, right, in how we interface with each other, and becoming more comfortable with that. I'm sure many of you have experienced a Zoom call of some sort and have become more comfortable interacting. And it's just a normal thing, right? As if it was something that we've always been doing. So as this new foundational reality becomes more normal for us, you'll start to see that it's just the way that we are. And that's what those planets are really representing. It's a reflection of integration, and a reflection of integration around what is essential for us right now. How does that tie in with the sun? Well, the sun entering Pisces, if we look at it from the point of view of a closing cycle, of a completion cycle, we're phasing out something that no longer has value, right? We're closing that, we're culminating. And of course, we're going to have a full moon in Virgo at some point very soon. So this also, of course, speaks to the activation of this sun in Pisces. Now, in terms of Mercury direct sort of energy, I don't really see it as deeply significant in terms of at least the message I want to present to you today, or some of the messages that I want to present to you today. Now, if you remember in the Mercury retrograde video, I talked about this profound synchronicity between Mercury sitting there in Aquarius at 11 degrees and then forming a trine to the North Node. And then the moon also crosses that at the same time, right? So the moon crosses the North Node and Mercury moves direct. Now, what is the significance of that? Well, the significance is that the planet that is associated with Gemini is Mercury, A, and B, the North Node is what suggests to us that we are moving towards, right? We're moving towards something. We are, so by moving towards something, the planet that is associated with North Node gives us deep insight into what that looks like specifically. So as you can see, Mercury there sitting just comes up to Saturn, but it's not going to cross Saturn. It's crossed Jupiter, it's crossed Venus. So it carries a message of those planets of restructuring. And then it comes to Saturn and it says, okay, Saturn, here's what you need to know about your conversation or relationship to Uranus. Okay. And that is the direction that we're moving in. So Mercury comes along and says, hey, here's a message, and this has to do with our direction. And of course, the outer planetary interface between Uranus being the outer planet and Saturn being the, again, the interface between our personal sense of reality, right? Who are you individually? And then how do you interact with the collective's sense of identity? Do you get what I mean by that, right? So you have a personal sovereign sense of self and boundaries, and then you have the collective or the culture you live within. And Saturn represents both, the interchange between the two. So when you can see here that Mercury, as I said, is coming along to Saturn and saying, I have a message for you. Saturn says, what is that? It says, okay, we are reshaping the landscape. We are radically transforming the way that we define ourselves individually, and of course, as a culture, right? They're both interchangeable. They occur at the same time. And Saturn says, okay, thanks very, very much. I will make sure that, as we redefine ourselves and shift our perspective, we find direction, right? We're developing direction. Now, the other side of the story is that Mercury is actually delivering the message that Uranus is speaking about, right? Mercury is the messenger or the lower octave of Uranus. And for those of you that don't know what I mean by that, it's a really, really beautiful way to see the relationship between short-term communication, like language occurring in the moment, Mercury, and the memory field of information and experiences that are contained biologically in your brain, in the hippocampus, energetically in terms of your memory field, right, your awareness. So Mercury acts as a messenger between the unconscious, Mercury, individual unconscious, Uranus, and the more conscious part of ourselves, which will be Saturn. Okay, so the lower octave would be short-term memory, and the deeper or higher octave of communication, Uranus. So there you have this beautiful synchronicity between Mercury going over to Uranus and saying, hey, what do you want to tell the world? Uranus says, we're trying to radically redefine our value structure. We want to ask the question, what's essential for you? And that's the question I'm asking you with this Mercury direct. What is essential for you right now? Where do you have too many things that are holding you down? Okay. So Saturn is now being delivered the message, and Saturn says, okay, the things that need to radically change are what's holding you down, what's weighing you down, what are you carrying with you, Saturn, your burden, that is not essential, what is dead wood. Okay, how can we radically shift, transform, and let go of things that are holding you down, that are weighing you down? What do you need to liberate from? Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay. So if you want to make this more personal, look at the location of Saturn in your chart, look at the location of Uranus in the chart, and what you want to do is tune into the house placements, okay? And you want to be able to then connect with your own emotional journey, right? What is your own emotional relationship to these squares? For me, as an example, my Uranus sits in my 4th house, Saturn sits in the 1st, and there is a significant change that is occurring for me individually, particularly around my work, particularly around the way that I want to continue to provide content and to support people. There is a radical shift taking place. And so I'm looking to cut away stuff, looking to make things more streamlined, etc. And so this is what Mercury is doing. Now, this, of course, applies to all of us and in different ways. If you have, say, Saturn sitting here in your 8th house, of course, if we look at this over here, Aquarius, where's Taurus, right? Uranus would be here, if I'm not mistaken. My brain is a little bit off center at the moment. Move that there. It should actually be there. That's what I originally thought. Okay. So if you had Saturn over here, my suspicion is that Uranus will sit here. Let's just use this as an example, right? This has to do, 8th house and 11th house, has to do with what are you emotionally attached to? And how is that related to your creative expression? Creative expression being 11th house with the axis of the 5th. The 8th house is the deep psychological attachment to that, right? How do you feel empowered in your creative expression? What is your expression? So the message here is to look at these two planets and Mercury saying, what are you carrying that can be simplified? What are you carrying that is not essential for you? What is no longer healthy for you to drag with you? Okay. And so the sun in Pisces over here is revealing the process of right? Surrendering those things, letting them go, right? Allowing them to move on, but also to see the meaning that it had in your life at the time that you decided to carry it. So that's another example, okay? So what are you carrying? How does that no longer serve you? Seeing the purpose in what it had originally, because it gives you a sense of connection to what was meaningful at the time, and then being able to understand what is not meaning for you at this moment. Okay, how is it not meaning for you for this moment? And so just kind of letting it be, just returning it back to the essence. I mean, if Pisces could reflect one thing in its truest form, it is the essence of something in its most purest way, right? It can't actually be defined, because the moment we define it, we separate it from its original source. So allowing things to be washed away, letting things go, letting attachments go, letting things that no longer serve you go. And the message that you would have received with Mercury retrograde during this period of time was, how and what is the value in it, right? What no longer has value for you anymore? Where are you carrying too much that is burdening you? Okay. So Saturn comes along and says, right, it's time to cut it. It's time to let it go. It's time to move on with the process. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so that's that. And of course, this message over here just literally just emphasizes the movement forward. Okay, now Mars that sits here in Taurus, sitting over here, squaring all of this energy, that would feel like, right, Saturn is sitting there. Mars is in what is called a crisis in action phase. So we are moving through these changes And these changes will feel like, I'm a little bit uncertain about how I'm doing this, but it will also feel like a necessary need to move on from what is known because it feels outdated or no longer working for you, and B, that you are emerging out of a very yin reflective process and into a more action orientated integration phase. And as you see here, look there, Venus and Mars, they're in a square to each other. They're just sort of starting their square. So another crisis in action square. And the reason why it's called crisis in action is because we're initiating something that is completely new. So the wisdom in that square is to let the tension reveal to you that you are moving forward, but also to let you know that it's not something that is of an issue. It's not a problem. It's just that it's developmental. It's two steps forward, one step back. Okay, I'm trying this out over here. It doesn't quite work. Okay, let's try a new aspect of it or a new angle of it. Okay. All right. So the takeaway from this Mars here is that it is shifting the value structure and it's initiating a value structure. And what that does for us is it creates the patterning within ourselves to liberate and let go. Okay. So the summary that I want to share with you today in terms of this video is that we are shifting the pattern of our value structure. We're looking at the things that no longer serve us anymore. We're cutting away the things that are dead weight. We're allowing them to culminate, Sun in Pisces, and we're letting ourselves be freed of the things that were once part of the past, that once represented something of meaning, that once represented an identity. We're shedding that layer. And as this process naturally occurs for us, you'll start to notice your orientation to life will begin to experience a sense of freedom, liberation, an aha moment, and we are simplifying, right? We're making things less complex and more simple so that as we're moving forward with the way that we behave internally within ourselves, but also the things that we want to actually achieve within our lives, we recognize that the complexity of things slows us down, right? There's more to think about. Whereas this is more about flow. It's more about being in tune with yourself, your resonance, and allowing yourself to actually be very clear around the way that you are seeing, perceiving, and sensing your life direction. Okay. All right, people, I really hope that you found a lot of value in this video. I was excited to jump onto this new format. I really like this a lot. Hope you enjoyed it too. And for those of you that are interested in learning more about astrology, or you just want to be in contact with us and get an astrology reading, understand this Mercury retrograde for yourself, in the description below, I'll leave the actual link to our website and you can go check all of that out. Okay. Have an amazing day.